Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hello Hosty podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Cynthia Huang. Cynthia is quite an inspiring entrepreneur and individual. Cynthia was a co-founder of AirHost Forum, head of product marketing and new market expansion at GrowFlow, the co-founder and CEO of Altcoin Fantasy, and also currently the co-founder and CEO of DTravel. DTravel is a Web3 blockchain platform, it's a mouthful to get out there, that enables participants to own part of the platform and also make decisions about the platform through a DAO. Cynthia, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Clive. Super excited to be here.
I have a ton of questions for you. First of all, do you ever sleep?
I actually have been doing a lot of research lately, and apparently sleep is the most important thing that you can do. So I do try and get some sleep, but also life is so exciting and there's so many things to do that it's hard to want to actually go to sleep, because then, yeah, life is all about doing all the things and growing every day.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And it is time. It's important to take time to get some shut eye, but it's also it's very inspiring. Life can energize you when you've got a lot of projects that you're enthusiastic about.
Exactly.
So perhaps we can just quickly cover, broadly quickly cover the stuff that you've done in the past, such as AirHost Forum, GrowFlow, and Altcoin Fantasy. Can you talk a bit about those?
Sure. Yeah. So AirHost Forum is something that I co-founded almost a decade ago now. And the reason for that was I was just starting my journey as an owner operator in the short-term and vacation rental industry. And I wanted to meet other hosts and property managers because I didn't know what it meant to be a good host or a good property manager. So I created this forum with my husband, and it's still running today. It's probably one of the most active and largest independent Airbnb or just sort of short-term rental communities online. And it's been amazing because I've been able to meet people from all around the world, and it's been a place where we could come together, share ideas. And it was funny because at the time that I started it, I didn't know that it would eventually be so connected to what I'm doing now. And so I always think back to that Steve Jobs quote, where at the time, the dots don't seem to connect, but then looking backwards, you realize how it's all interconnected. So that's been very much my journey, and been really happy that the forum is still continuing today, because obviously it's super relevant to what I'm doing at DTravel.
Yeah, awesome. So I want to ask you, what are your let's make this like a quick fire question. What are your top 3 tips for launching a forum?
Content.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Take
because what
content.
happens is when you're first creating a forum, obviously you need to have content that people want to come to. And so it's really important for you to essentially bootstrap and kickstart your own content. So you'll want to do a lot of SEO and figure out what people are interested in, what they're asking about, and what there's not good resources out there. I think from a timing perspective, we were pretty fortunate because we launched at a time when this didn't really exist. I mean, short-term rentals and the whole Airbnb and VRBO, et cetera, space was pretty new at the time. So there just weren't really a lot of resources. So I think we were able to capitalize on that. But also we created a lot of unique content that I think brought people in. And then the second tip is around discoverability. So we really growth hacked a lot of things at the beginning, where we would go to newsletter articles online, blogs, etc., just wherever people were writing or had a question, or there was a news article about something related to Airbnb or the short-term rental industry. And then we would post a link back to our forum saying, hey, you had this question and we've answered it here. So we did a lot of these really unique kind of growth hacking things at the beginning.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So you were basically answering questions in other forums, but linking back to your own.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Not
brilliant.
even forums, but even like news articles and things like that. Because again, at the time, if you search for, short-term rentals or Airbnb, all you would find are these horrific stories. And I thought, well, I mean, there's got to be more to that. And if you want to avoid those stories, how do you become a good host, or how do you avoid these guests? And so I think being able to look at how to solve these things that people aren't really asking about, but that they need, was really critical to how we were able to grow a really big audience for the forum.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. I'm keen to discuss that more, but I understand that we've got so much to talk about with you. Let's talk a bit about GrowFlow.
Yeah, so this was a SaaS cannabis company, and it was based out of the US. And I am from Canada, where cannabis has been legal for quite a long time. But it was interesting because going into that industry and learning about the regulatory environment, which also still has a lot of application, obviously, to vacation rentals and short-term rentals, because it's also a heavily regulated environment. That was a really interesting experience for me.
Yeah. Okay. And so how about altcoin? What is, first of all, what is altcoin fantasy, and what was your role there?
Yeah, so this was born out of a desire to help people onboard to crypto back in 2017. So we ran that from 2017 to 2020, and it was actually doing pretty well. So it's a crypto trading simulation game. We wanted to gamify the experience of people learning about trading crypto because that was the primary use case at the time. And we actually grew that to over 350,000 users, all organic. So we didn't do any paid marketing. And unfortunately, Google Play shut us down right
Oh.
before the market kind of picked up again. So bad timing. But again, just learned so much. And being in the space, fairly early at the time was such an incredible opportunity because you got to meet people who now have gone on to build some of the biggest companies. And I think just being really early in the industry, again, very similar to being really early into short-term rentals, was really interesting because you got to see how the industry evolved. And I think that brings this richness of understanding to how you problem solve and think about different challenges, that it's really hard to get that sort of context when you come into it as a new person.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting we say about about short-term rentals being a new industry, because obviously, I mean, it is and it isn't, because obviously people have been renting
Yeah, for sure.
accommodation since the dawn of time. But
Yeah.
I think we can really define it as the birth of Airbnb, because
The
that changed.
technology, I think,
Yeah, the
that
technology
piece.
changed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So moving on to talking about technology and booking platforms, DTravel, Web3. For the layman listener out there, for somebody who doesn't know what Web3 is, can you explain to us in layman terms what Web3 is?
For sure. So Web3 is essentially a couple of different things. At its core, it's blockchain technology, which powers it. And so that's the enabling technology. But for me, Web3 is not really about the technology. It's about this shift, which we call from Web2 to Web3, which is both a technology shift, but also a cultural shift. And the cultural shift is that we are moving from where people are the products. So you sell your data, for example, to Google, or you use products for free because they're monetizing your data, to Web3, where you become an owner within these products and ecosystems, and you're contributing in some way. And so you're getting some benefit via tokens or voting or some other mechanism. But it's really about you becoming an owner within that ecosystem and contributing back to it, rather than you being sort of like this passive product.
I see. So a kind of like devolved sense of, or devolved ownership of the platform. You own your content. That's from my understanding. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it, that you have ownership over your data, over your content, and over your monetization. So in a lot of ways, it's about disintermediating that intermediary and really giving the ownership and power back into the people who are producing whatever content or value that they are.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, in this world of Web3, which is kind of encompassing blockchain, AI, many different kind of factors, I see that the major, let's say the big players, the big OTAs, Airbnb, Booking.com, etc., of this era are going to have to they're going to have to shift shape. They're going to have to adapt, because either they move with the times and kind of give some offering in this space, or I don't, from my personal opinion, I don't see them becoming absolutely obsolete, because there is some kind of, obviously
Mm-hmm.
there'll be some historical loyalty to the platforms, and they'll be able to offer some kind of security, let's say. This is a good point.
Mm-hmm.
How will in the future of Web3, how will the same level of security for the traveler be offered that is currently offered via Airbnb or Booking.com? How will that be handled?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question. And I think there's a few different things that I'll talk about. So the first is that when you have an intermediary in the middle of a transaction, right? And this is true even outside of vacation or short-term rentals. And I gave this experience example recently on a post on LinkedIn, but basically imagine that you go to rent a car. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people will resonate with the fact that when they rent a car, because they paid money to this like big corporation, they feel like they have the right to probably drive in a way that they wouldn't otherwise, right? If it were their
Yeah.
own car. If you borrowed that car from a friend, if it was your own car, you would treat it carefully. But because now there's this big company that you're paying money to, it dehumanizes and I think encourages you to act in a different way. And I think that's very much the same relationship that we have in short-term rentals, where, it started out as very peer-to-peer. I book with you, I know who you are, I feel an obligation to be a good guest. And now we have all of these big OTAs who have come in and, they serve a very valuable purpose. But then what happens is that because I'm paying all of these fees, I feel like I have a right to certain things that would be different than if I were booking directly with you. And
Okay.
so I think that, first of all, there won't be as much need for protections because people will just be incentivized to act in a different way, in a better, more conscious way, because there isn't this intermediary in the middle who's taking these fees. And so they feel like they need to get their money's worth, or they don't feel like they need to be as careful. And then secondly, I think that, one of the things that we've incorporated is damage protection through Superhog. So I think there's very much other tools out there that don't have to rely on an OTA, because the thing is, what those fees end up paying for are the bad actors, right? So you might only have 10% of people on a platform who are misbehaving, but then 90% of people are paying for that because that 10% kind of exceeds the 90%.
That
So I
makes
think that
sense.
there's other mechanisms that could help solve for this that doesn't have to do with somebody in the middle, taking on that risk.
Yeah. So for the listeners who don't know what Superhog is a security. They take security deposits, but they also verify the guests. That's correct, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
they'll take the guests' data, credit card information, name, etc., and they'll research the guest to make sure that they've not had previous misconducts, or they've not got any CCJs out against them, or any bad ticks against their name, which is, yeah, from my perspective, as both traveler, host, and somebody in this industry, that seems to be a really sensible way to confront that challenge, let's say. But
Exactly.
also, I mean, with that question in mind, a concern of the kind of security element of protecting the host against malevolent guests. Not all platforms provide much, in the way of that. For example, Booking.com are way, I consider them to be much higher risk than Airbnb, because
Yes.
they don't offer you much in terms of verifying guests. So using someone like Superhog, even in the Booking.com environment, is a sensible move.
For sure. And, I know that in the industry, especially if you have properties on Airbnb, that tends to be sort of the gold standard. But the thing is, it's not a guarantee, right? There is still very much variability in whether or not they're going to pay for any damages or claims. And so for you as a property manager, the only way that you can really ensure that you're going to be protected is having some coverage like Superhog's damage protection, because it's not, it's not like Airbnb has an incentive to not pay against you. Like, this is damage protection that is best in class. They have up to $5 million, which is a huge amount. And they're really host or property manager centric. And so I think it's just a different kind of business model that is not like, their incentives are aligned with you because they're trying to protect you as the host and property manager, versus Airbnb obviously has an incentive to not pay. And, again, Booking.com, same thing, like, they don't really have a lot of protection. And so you should have something additionally to make sure that you're protected.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does it work with DTravel in terms of the guest journey and the host journey? Are payments processed in dollars, pounds, and euros, or in crypto?
Yeah, so let me take a step back. How we describe DTravel is not really a product or a brand. It's an ecosystem of different products and infrastructure for the vacation rental industry. But more important than our product is really the mission and the why of what we're doing. And everybody on the team is from the short-term rental industry and also Web3. And we really see a world where we want to go back to empowering direct connections, where it's about two people making a connection, whether that's a host and a guest or a property manager and a guest, and really nurturing that relationship instead of having an intermediary in the middle. Because what ends up happening is obviously there's a lot of costs associated with that goes downstream. But again, I think that that relationship, when you have somebody in the middle, is not as rich. And so that travel experience changes too. So all of our products really are about empowering those direct connections. And then also, we talked a little bit about this idea of ownership, but I've been obviously a owner operator for almost a decade now. And I think about how much value I've added to the industry, but haven't really been able to capture any of that value. And we see that in Web3, it should be different, where if you're contributing value to a product or an ecosystem or an industry, you should be able to get that value back. And so that's what we're trying to do with DTravel, where if you're a contributor, whether you're a builder, you're a property manager, a guest, or even just a community community member volunteering for something, or an affiliate, whatever role that you have within the DTravel ecosystem, you're actually going to get ownership via our token. And we have a couple of different products. So the first that we have is called DTravel Direct, and that's our direct booking solution. And so it's a premium direct booking website builder that makes it really easy to create a direct booking site in minutes. And the Web3 element is all of the crypto payments are done via what's called smart contracts. And smart contracts, sort of at its very core, is just code that has logic that executes. So it says, if this guest doesn't cancel within the cancellation period, then the money will go to the property manager. That's like very simple logic that's within the smart contract. And the reason that this is really important is, I'm sure that you probably had this experience, but whenever you're relying on either an intermediary like Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, or a payment processor like Stripe, PayPal, they're holding on to your funds. They have the control. And this happens all the time, especially with Stripe, where they'll close your account because they think you have fraudulent activity. Somebody's reported you for whatever reason. Maybe you have too many chargebacks, or Airbnb hold on to your funds because they said you haven't verified your ID. This literally happened to me the last week. Or Booking.com has all these payment delays. So there's a lot of reasons where when somebody has control over your funds, that's a really vulnerable position for you to be in as a business owner. And we saw this during COVID, where you had all these cancellations and so many property managers went out of business. And so really that's the problem we're trying to solve with the smart contract piece is when you have a smart contract, nobody can come along and say, I'm going to actually hold on to your funds, because you as a property manager own that smart contract and nobody can actually change it because it's code.
Yeah, that is one of the best things about direct bookings from my perspective, is the fact that as the property manager, you're in control. And if a guest wants to operate outside of your pre-agreed arrangement contract, then you can enforce the contract which you've agreed to. Whereas big booking channels will happily pull the rug from under the host. It's easier for a big OTA to go and find property managers than it is for them to find guests. So the favor sits with the guest in 90% of the interactions, which I see DTravel as empowering hosts for that.
For sure.
For that degree.
Yeah. I think, we kind of took it one step further than just direct bookings with smart contracts and Web3, because again, even if you have your own direct booking website, you're still relying on a third-party payment processor. And these payment processors pull out of markets all the time for regulatory reasons or geopolitical reasons. They close your account, they cancel your account. And I think luckily for us in developed countries, it's not so much of a concern, but you see this happening in developing countries very, very often. And so I think this is really solving a big problem that we're going to continue to see increase because of various reasons. But I think that more and more we hear property managers talking about chargebacks becoming a really big problem. And this is the other thing that smart contracts solve for, is that there is no chargeback because settlement is final and instant.
Sure. What inspired you to start this business?
Well, I've been in Web3 for quite a while, and then also obviously been in the short-term rental industry for a long time. And a group of us came together because I think that we were really passionate about the problems that we could solve using Web3. And technology on the Web3 side has come really far, where it felt like the perfect time. And I think also COVID was, in a way, for the industry, a watershed moment because it became super apparent that these relying on OTAs for most of your bookings isn't sustainable, especially if you're a property manager with a decent portfolio. Like now there's a huge risk that if something happens, you're going to go out of business. I think for the, maybe one, two, three property
Mm,
hosts or property managers, it's not such a big risk. But when you've got a huge portfolio and that's your entire business,
yeah.
you really need to make sure that you're diversifying.
I think this industry, I don't know about other industries particularly, but I know in this industry, COVID was like an A bomb going off. For my particular business,
Hmm.
it changed everything. It changed the way we operate. We were fortunate we were able to pivot and to keep our properties through really good relationships with owners, etc. But it was like an A bomb going off, and it changed
Hmm.
everything, and even down to the way that the OTAs performed, the way they behaved. You're right. We were so exposed and so vulnerable. Um, so a bit more control in that area because you never know what's going to come. May not be
Exactly.
COVID, but there will be another situation. We don't know where it will come from, but there'll be other situations in the future that throw things up in the air. Um, so a bit more control is definitely very welcome when I put my property manager's hat on, for sure. So what's on the horizon for DTravel?
Oh, we have so many things. So recently we released an Airbnb import, so you can now import your listings from Airbnb because obviously 90% of property managers have a listing there. So it's now really easy to create a direct booking site. We also have an integration with Google Vacation Rentals, which is unique because if you don't pay for a PMS, obviously you don't have access to that integration and that distribution. So
Mhm.
really trying to make it easy for property managers to be able to get as much distribution as possible. And then we have other products that are going to help with that distribution as well. So we have one product that's coming out, and I can't say too much about it, but it's going to be an AI powered search for travelers. So
Okay.
DTravel Direct is our property manager centric product, and we've had a lot of community members ask, like, when is a guest product going to come out? And so this is the answer for that, and we're super excited because it's never been done before, and we're leveraging the power of AI, which obviously is really powerful. And so we're super excited to be launching that product in the next little while.
I'm excited to hear more about that. I know that I saw that previously when ChatGPT 4 had the Bing integration, which no longer
Hmm.
exists, that I played around with it, searching for, I put in some criteria. I'm going to Barcelona for a week on these dates, and I need a property with a terrace, and it's got to be in the center of the city. It's got to be in this price range. And it went out, search Bing, and it didn't just hit the big OTAs. It was searching through individual websites. So it was providing,
Oh, nice.
which was really cool. I mean, I'm really keen to hear what you guys are doing in this space, because I mean that's gone. That they didn't continue with that integration with Bing, and I kind of saw that an opportunity to search for an opportunity that will level the playing field, that will take
Hmm.
a lot of power away from the big OTAs and put it in the hands of the individual with their own direct booking
Exactly.
websites. So
Hmm.
I'm really keen to hear more about what you guys have in store with regards to that.
Yeah, I think with direct bookings, the challenge has been that everybody wants more direct bookings, especially if you're a property manager with a larger portfolio. But there just haven't been a lot of really good tools or infrastructure to be able to do that. And I think we're going to this era where more and more companies are focusing on direct bookings, including PMSs. They realize obviously the power of direct bookings, and they're trying to build more distribution channels, more features for this. And so I think in the next evolution of our industry, we're actually going to see that direct bookings, I mean, this is my prediction anyway, that direct bookings are going to increase because of the maturity of tooling that is
Mhm.
available. And so, like you said, with AI, I think it's going to be more and more easy for travelers to discover direct booking websites. And like you said, level the playing field, because if you're an OTA and distribution and travelers and traffic is your mode, how are you going to protect yourself when anybody can theoretically find a direct booking site now, and there's maybe not as much incentive to book, especially if you're talking about 20% fees, right? That's a huge amount.
Yeah. I mean, just between you and me, and definitely not between all the listeners, whenever I search for accommodation, I have a little hack. We travel often, and we stay in, you know, quite nice places, and I go through and I try and find some way to, you know, I think a lot of people do this. They try and find a way, like, do they have a brand? Do they have a website?
Yeah.
Yeah. And often do the direct booking thing. Find, you know, we're going to Venice next month, and we managed to find the direct booking website for this company.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that, well, the the traveler is motivated for that. A lot of travelers are motivated for that direct booking for that reason.
Exactly. There's actually some really cool tools out there. I've seen a couple where they're either websites that you can plug in the OTA listing and then they'll show you their direct booking website, or there's even Chrome extensions like Cherry, which when you're on an OTA, it will show you if there's a direct booking website, and it works for hotels and vacation rentals. And then it'll show you what the difference in price is. So again, like, I think there's definitely this awareness and increasing need for tools, and people are responding to that. So it's pretty exciting because
I bet the OTAs hate those tools.
oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, I think what's interesting about AI is that we've been talking about personalization in the travel industry forever, right? And we haven't really done a great job of that, because if you think about search, it's really dependent on the traveler to find what is customized for them. But with AI, now you can actually truly customize the search experience for a traveler based on not just the parameters that they put in, but if you have an AI that you're constantly using all the time, there's this individualism in terms of the search results that gets returned back to you the more that you use that AI for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that with a lot of the OTAs, search has been really one of the big value propositions that they've had. But now I think that they'll need to shift to offer more value rather than just search, because of the tools that are coming out now.
Yeah, I agree with you absolutely. That they've got it's sink or swim. They've got to shift, because they're big changes are coming. Big changes are coming
Mm-hmm.
with Web3, DTravel, and other things along with AI. The world is rapidly moving in the tech space, and that's really, you know, they've had a monopoly on search. You're right, and that is changing. So
Yeah.
so what's the biggest challenge that DTravel faces currently?
Well, you know, I mean, we're still a startup, so early phases is definitely growth, supply acquisition. So really trying to get property managers on board, because I think that the OTAs do have a really big monopoly. And so trying to either convince people to set up a direct booking website, or if they already have one, to switch to us. But the way that I see the evolution of direct bookings is very much the same way that Airbnb, VRBO, and Booking.com made short-term rentals really easy for anybody to put up a room or a listing. We're trying to do that with direct booking. So this evolution where you had everybody have an Airbnb listing, in the future, they're going to have their own direct booking website. It's just going to be a part of the industry, because that's really the only way that we get to
Yeah.
sustainability. And so our vision is to make that as easy as possible and provide the infrastructure and tooling in the same way that Airbnb
Mm-hmm.
did for just creating a listing.
Yeah. So one of the products of DTravel is direct booking website creation, correct? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. So let's talk a bit about your journey as a startup with DTravel. I understand you guys received quite a significant amount of funding in your seed round. 5 million, is that correct?
7 million.
7 million. Okay. I'm sure my listeners would love to find out how that came about, and how it's helped you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we raised at a good time. So timing was definitely you know, important. I think what's been really powerful, and I always talk about this, is our secret sauce is very much our team
Mhm.
and the mission and vision that we're on, because everybody on the team is so passionate about the industry, about the mission that we're driving. And you know, you and I were talking a little bit earlier about this, but we have community members who are just so passionate about what we're trying to do that they almost see themselves as team members. So two of our community members, Amir and Ali, are actually throwing a community event in London, which is our first ever. as part of Zebu Live, which is a Web3 conference happening at the same time. But they're throwing this conference, or sorry, this like side event on their own, and we're obviously invited and are going to speak. But I think that speaks to the passion that people have for this vision that we're trying to build, which is this world where everybody is an owner, and because they are, you know, owners, they feel like they want to go out and do things on our behalf. They feel like they're part of the team and they can contribute and really make a difference. And I think that's really what's powerful about Web3 is because you're an owner, you are so much motivated to go out and make a difference for the company, the ecosystem, the brand that you're helping be a part of, which is so different from Web2 because you're really just, you know, they call them users for a reason. You're just one little piece and you're not really that important. Whereas in Web3, what we're trying to say is everybody is really important and we want to encourage people to come in and be a part of our growth and to get benefits from being a part of it.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, you've got obviously great experience with building communities, and that seems to be a big part of what DTravel is about, building a community.
Exactly. Yeah, we are all about our community.
So what practical tips, we spoke about this offline just before we got on the call, what practical tips can you offer property managers if they want to get involved in the Web3 space and take advantage, become like an early adopter into this space?
Oh, I love this question. So, I mean, obviously I have to say join DTravel. But I think when people think about Web3 or blockchain or crypto, it feels very overwhelming because it seems like this big, scary technology that's unknown. But there's a lot of ways that you can use Web3. If you look at these brands that are using Web3, Nike, Starbucks, Adidas, Gucci, I mean, they are all on the Web3 train because what they see is with NFTs, which you can think of like a digital item, they see the power of that and being able to reward users for loyalty. And the other powerful thing about Web3 is about the ability to use it in other ecosystems. So I'll give you a very concrete example because I think this always helps. Imagine, so I have properties in Canada, and I know you have properties kind of all over, right? Imagine if you and I had a partnership together and I said, okay, we're going to create this token or NFT, whatever vehicle you want to use. And it becomes a loyalty or membership where if somebody stays with me, they're going to get some sort of NFT. And accruing a certain number of NFTs or tokens will actually give you perks, like either loyalty perks or discounts. And then you can use it with Clive at any of his properties. That's really powerful because
like
now it's a
system.
network. Yeah, but it's a network of people that makes it so much greater than you working on your own. And I think when I think about the power of Web3 within the short-term rental industry, this is, I think, one of the most powerful things because as a property manager, direct bookings are obviously very important, but the challenge is that how many times does a customer return to the same place for vacations? Not as often as you would like, obviously. But now if you have a network where maybe you can benefit from having this network and you can get customers organically because you're a part of this network, I mean, that's so powerful because that's free marketing and you can really grow the database of travelers because of this network. And so I think there's a lot of really powerful benefits that people don't see in Web3 because they only think about the technology, but it's really about, like, for me, the technology is so unimportant compared to the benefits and the real world applications of this.
Okay, yeah, it's what I'm hearing a lot from you is it's community. In one way, shape, or form, it's community. It's community for the hosts, property managers. It's community for the guests. And who doesn't want to be part of a great community? Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, it already exists, right? If you think about all these Facebook groups, these forums, there's so many communities for hosts and property managers all around the world. It already exists. And I think it's really been such a lost opportunity for these OTAs to not take advantage of it, because if you have such passionate people who are creating groups just to help each other, I mean, why not have that within your ecosystem and maybe give them a little bit of funding to host these events, or be able to reward community members who are really stepping up and doing training or hosting different events to promote the industry. Like, I just think that people are already doing this, so why not really capitalize on that?
Yeah, I remember when Airbnb first started out, there was a big movement towards like the Airbnb. It felt like there was a big movement towards like Airbnb community. They used to host like
Yep.
meetups. There was pages dedicated
Yes, I remember that.
within the Airbnb platform. But these have all gone now. They've not
Hmm.
they're not I don't know, maybe they felt that they've built the community as much as they need it, or it no longer served them. I don't know. But it doesn't exist like it used to. And it is a shame because I know that in my personal business world, building community is such a fantastic thing. Um, it is such a fantastic thing, for people to share ideas and thoughts and ideas. It's a wonderful thing. So I think you're onto a good thing there with DTravel. So one of the things I like to ask guests on this show is, do you have any tips, tricks, or hacks that you can recommend to business people at large? Let's go beyond just the property managers.
Sorry, say that again.
Do you have any tips, tricks, or hacks? Anything that you use which is useful, or any advice you can give to people?
Oh, just generally. Okay. I love reading
Hmm.
and podcasts. I don't watch any TV, which people are always shocked at, but I listen to all of my podcasts and audiobooks on 2x speed. And so I can actually get through a lot, and I will listen to them literally anytime I have a second. When I'm getting
Okay.
ready in the morning, when I'm getting ready to go to bed at night. Sometimes I'll listen in the shower whenever I'm cooking dinner. Like literally any minute that I have, I will just listen to something. And what that does is you're accelerating your learning curve exponentially, because if somebody reads one book a year or one book a month, but you're going through, one a week or one every few days, I mean, just think about the curve. And this is actually something that Elon Musk did, is
Hmm.
when he was young, he would read, I think, a book a day or something crazy like that.
Hmm.
And so he's basically been able to learn the same amount that someone would learn in 15 years in 1 year.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So he like 15x his learning curve. What book are you read or listening to
Exactly.
currently?
Um, so it's called Super Attractors by Gabby Bernstein. I'm very into like spirituality, and sort of quantum mechanics,
Okay.
the quantum field. And so it's a book about how you basically attract things to you.
Okay. Would visualizations be part of that?
Yeah,
Mantras?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And the other, I mean, like, I'm a huge fan of different podcasts, but one that I've been gorging on lately is a Mind Valley podcast. So,
Okay.
for those of you who aren't familiar, Mind Valley is this community of entrepreneurs, visionaries, etc., and they have really amazing speakers within their community who are the world-renowned experts in their field. But he brings on really, really interesting guests that talks about things that you wouldn't really think about otherwise. And it's a really, really good one. Definitely highly
Mind
recommend
Valley.
it. Hmm.
It's on my list. It's on
Yeah,
my
let me know
list.
what you think of it.
Yeah,
You
sure.
have to listen at 2x speed though.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. While I'm running around doing everything at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Cynthia, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. If people would like to find out more about you or about DTravel, how would they go about doing this?
Our website is dtravel.com, and then I'm on pretty much all of the social platforms. So LinkedIn, and then my handle on Telegram, Discord, and Twitter is CYNB3AR. And you can find us on all the social channels as well at DTravel or at DTravel DAO. And we would definitely love to hear from you. We always love meeting people in the community. So definitely, yeah, give us a shout and reach out.
Awesome. Awesome. Cynthia, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much, Clive. Really appreciate it.